Okay, so we can get started. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today for our Certificate in User Experience or UX Design information webinar. We have a great little presentation for you. This is being recorded, and these are today's presenters. On the left is me. My name is Marina De Bona, and I'm a program manager for the School of Continuing Studies at York University. And Rahim, could you just introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, so I'm the instructor, and I teach the last out of the 4 courses in the continuing education UX program.
All right, perfect. We'll talk about the School of Continuing Studies, why choose York University, the T-shaped professional and what that is. And then Rahim has been graciously agreed to be with us today. So he'll talk to you a little bit about the field, about what is UX design, what are some of the job projections, and then he'll give you a special presentation. He's going to showcase some of the work that the students have been doing in the program, and then he'll give you a bit of a background on who he is and what he does in this field. Then he'll turn it back over to me for the learning format, the schedule, how to register, and then we can have a Q&A at the end. Okay, so for those that don't know about York University, we are the third largest institution in Canada. We've got world-class rankings, and we have a School of Continuing Studies that is within the university, and we were founded on designing cutting-edge programs. We're located in Toronto, and our community comprises of over 53,000 undergrad students. We've got about 7,000 graduate students. We have students internationally from over 178 countries in the world. So why choose our certificate in user experience design? Well, I just wanted to talk about some of the features, the benefits, and the advantages. Rahim is going to also talk a little bit more about the program in a little bit more detail. So that'll be explained later in the presentation. But just as a high level overview of the program, I think these are the real main features of our program. The first one is that it's blended and we have a condensed delivery model. And so what that means is that students can balance priorities, they can finish the program faster. The program can be done in an 8-month period, and there's lots of flexibility in the program, and it was designed for the working professional. The second feature is the cohort. So what that means is that everyone will progress through the program with the same group of people. This has shown for students in terms of advantages. They can build connections, they can develop communities of practice. There's a stability in scheduling, so every single one of the courses is guaranteed to run, and there's a nice flow. So when we actually developed the program, there was a good flow between each of the courses. Now, the third is building a portfolio, and Rahim is going to talk a little bit more about that in detail, but students will be working with a real client, and they'll be able to showcase these new skills that they've developed in the program, and also this portfolio work in a job interview. And lastly is that all of our instructors are from industry. They are constantly updating the content in the program to remain current and relevant. And of course, very, very important, they bring real work examples to the classroom. So education fit to a T, or what is the T-shaped professional is what we call it. And, it's part of our mandate to graduate students that are considered T-shaped professionals. So really what this means is that it's really anyone who has deep knowledge in an area, which is the bottom of the T, the core skills to do the job, and also broad-based supporting soft skills, which is the top of the T. And the combination of the two is really what makes a person really, really unique. And so we've incorporated really important cross-functional skills into the program, such as critical thinking, oral and written communication, presentation skills, critiquing, problem solving, empathy, very, very important. So like I mentioned, the vertical bar on the letter T indicates the depth of an employee's expertise and skills in a field, while the horizontal is really the employee's capability to collaborate across multiple disciplines with experts in different areas, and applying the knowledge to other fields. Okay, so moving on to the next slide is I'm going to turn it over to Rahim so he can talk to you about UX design.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfectly.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So what is UX design? So I'm sure you guys are kind of aware of what UX design is if you're here. So UX design is essentially, understanding, the applications you use on your phone daily, whether you're on a Mac or Windows, whether you're on a kiosk. A lot of that experience is around user experience design. And then we'll kind of dive a little into the nuances of UI design and stuff as the presentation progresses. Next slide, please. Did you want to talk about this, or do you want me to talk about this?
You can go for it.
Okay. So the job market, as we know, with Facebook announcing the metaverse, and as time progresses with virtual reality and augmented reality, there's no shortage of UX jobs that are going to be prospering in the market right now. Whether it's Toronto, Ontario, Canada, I mean, the UX market is pretty remote for the most part right now. Obviously, there are some cases where you kind of need to be in person, but for the most part, including my job right now, it's primarily remote. So that's also a bonus of being in the UX job market, because you have that ability to be flexible. Did I miss anything, Marina?
No, not at all. Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
the whole premise. Yes, can you hear me okay? The whole premise here is
Yeah.
that, yeah, definitely. I just wanted to reinforce that UX jobs have grown exponentially, and this is all based on the research that we've conducted through the school, and that in the GTA alone, like UX jobs are up 107%. So I think that those are extraordinary statistics. So really, this is a really great time for someone who wants to be in the field, to look at different programs. And I'm glad that the folks that are on this call are interested in York University's program.
Yeah, and just one thing to add, before I forget, there was a story that I do want to tell, a recent story of a past student that was an Air Canada flight attendant. She lost her job, and I'll save the rest for later in the presentation of what happened to her. Anyways, sorry, continue. Alrighty, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Rahim. I'm an instructor. I've been an instructor, I guess it's been over 2 years now, since the inception of this course. Worked with the other talented instructors to kind of develop this course from scratch. And the benefit of doing that was that, obviously myself and the other instructors, we are all practicing designers. So we wanted to make sure we create a course, a program that is applicable to what's happening in the market right now, as opposed to just, giving you not random things, but things that are more applicable to you getting a job, because that is the intention and the goal of why you're signing up for a program like this and investing your time and money into a program. In terms of the structure, so the course is broken up into 4 parts. The first course is about an introduction to UX design. So you're kind of gonna get familiarize yourself with all the aspects of the world of UX. And then following that, the course is taught by Melanie. She's actually a designer who used to work at Shopify. Now she works for Spotify. And that course is all about user research, design and research. And that's really essentially the foundation of UX in terms of just figuring out who your users are, really doing the core research before you start designing. The next course, the third one, is taught by Philippe. He's actually a designer at Shopify. And that's all about UI design, visual design, and just putting all the pieces together. And then the last course, the fourth one, is when you get to see me. And that course is all about actually making your learnings into an applicable application or a website. So what that means is that I actually go digging for real clients. To this date, since the inception of the program in February of 2020, when I first taught my course, we've had over 45 clients, real clients, which is kind of nuts. What they all span from nonprofit to small businesses. And the goal is to basically help these clients achieve a working website at the end of the 7-week engagement, which is kind of let's just say you get very busy, but at the end of the day, it's really important because you will have a real life portfolio piece in your project. So if you want to go back a slide. So in terms of my background, I've been really grateful. I studied industrial design at Carleton University, and then I came across an experience where I designed a product. It was a shoe bag that used ultraviolet light to kill odor in your shoes. And I came across a predicament where I was like, okay, this is a cool product. I won lots of awards, but how do I make this come alive, right? I was grateful to be interviewed on Discovery Channel, but what I realized about my design background was I was taught how to be a designer, but I wasn't taught about the business skills and the things that actually you want to know to make things a reality. So then I spontaneously moved to San Francisco, got an MBA in design strategy, which really taught you about the business skills, basically teaching creatives how to, leverage the aspects of design in terms of just using creativity more in a business context. And then I lived in San Francisco for about 6 years, worked at various companies like Samsung's Innovation Lab, interned at Fuse Project, which is a really well-known branding and industrial design firm. And then I pivoted my career more into the UX world around design research, design strategy. And then in terms of the process, so as I mentioned, we did create this course from scratch. So my process is pretty much around question the problem, research, observe, make connections, design, test, prototype, and produce. And the course itself is kind of built around this methodology. Next slide, please. So like I said, I went to Carleton University. I did an industrial design major with a minor in business. And then I went to grad school in San Francisco at the California College of the Arts to do an MBA in design strategy. Next slide, please. I've worked in various different places. So my journey kind of began in Toronto when I was grateful to actually practice industrial design as a high school intern at Umbra. And then I worked at California Innovations, which designs soft goods, and then worked at Technion, which was designing furniture. And then I moved to California and worked at these various places, even had my own startup, which failed, but that's a whole different story. And then I'm back in Toronto now, moved back to Toronto at the end of 2017 because America got a little bizarre. And then right now I currently am a product designer at a company called Verisent, and they do sales performance management software. Next slide, please. So yeah, like I mentioned, this is kind of the breakdown of the courses. The fundamentals of UX taught by Carmen, UX design research taught by Melanie. Course 3 is visual design and wireframe prototyping. So that's when you get more analytical. More hands-on. The first 2 courses are more in the analytical side, so we kind of balance that out within, understanding the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain. And then by the time you get to me, is the applied UX, where you actually partner with real clients. You're in teams, and you get to work and have something actually applicable. Because one of my pain points when I was in school was you work on a lot of fictitious projects, and then they never see it's not real, right? Working with a real client not only teaches you how to validate your design skills that you've been taught, but also doing the soft skills, right, in terms of communicating and understanding what your client's needs are and trying to create something that comes into reality. Next slide, please. So like I said, that number is definitely, I just wrapped up another course this Saturday, so that number is pretty much at 44, 45 now, if I'm not mistaken. So the way my course works is, just to kind of give you a brief overview, is what happens is we tell each student to do this activity or this exercise called Strength Finder. What that allows me to do is understand everyone's strengths, and then everyone puts that on a spreadsheet, and we start divvying up the teams. Obviously, this course has students from all over the place, so I try my best to make sure that each team is equally distributed with areas of the design of the UX design process that people are interested in. For example, if you're really passionate about design research, UI design, prototyping, general UX, we want to make sure all the teams are equally distributed so everyone can kind of lead that element of the process. So what we do is, before the course even begins, I do a really intense search on trying to find a client that meets the requirements and the curriculum for the program. So this past course, we had 8 clients. So what happens is, during that first kickoff class with the students, we figure out the teams and we figure out which team is going to work with which client. And then it's the team's responsibility to have that kickoff call. The client's obviously aware. And then what happens in the second week is you get familiar with the problem the client's trying to solve for. So I'll give a couple of examples in a second in terms of what those clients look like. They create a design brief. So what a design brief is it's essentially a proposal, and you want to put everything on paper because you want to make sure that these clients you know, there's no curveballs, right? Like they don't come to you after week 3 or week 4 and they're like, oh, I need a new logo now and all this stuff, right? So we want to make sure everything's kind of set in stone. And then we spend 2 weeks doing design research. So this is essentially the foundation of a project. So if you think about, you know, if you're building a house, you want to spend a lot of time building the foundation of the house, because without the solid foundation, your house will pretty much fall apart, right? And that goes with design and UX design as well. You want to really understand the problem. You want to talk to the stakeholders. You want to do your due diligence. You want to do primary research, secondary research, and really understand what is it that you're trying to solve for, right? Once that's been figured out, the designing, you have the criteria already down. You know what's happening. The design is purely, for the most part, execution. Week 4, what we do is, because I have an MBA, I try to introduce the students to more understanding around the world of business and design. So what that means is that, you know, just because you're working with a client and you're designing a website or an app for them doesn't mean that you don't understand. I want all the students to have that autonomy in terms of being valuable to the client, right? In terms of understanding their business, like, can they improve their business model? What other value can they add from a creative point of view to improve the business? So I'll give you a quick example. One of the clients last year was a kebab shop. It was a family kebab shop from a family from Afghanistan. They opened up their restaurant right before COVID. I randomly stumbled into this restaurant, talked to the owner, and got him on board to this class to redesign their website. So essentially, when the students were working and doing their research, you know, it was a typical kebab shop. You know, they had their traditional recipes. But what we tried to do was, you know, introduce a new revenue stream. So what we did was we actually the students built their website on Shopify and enabled them to, you know, sell their sauces online. So now they have another additional revenue stream in addition to their restaurant, right? So now people are buying their sauces, which are really well known for, online, right? So that's where it comes to thinking about how creativity and business kind of come arm in arm, or hand in hand. The 5th week is 3 visual design concepts. So this is where the fun part begins, right? We want the students to design 3 distinctively different visual design concepts for the website. And then you dive into the prototyping and the user testing, because that's very important. You may think you've created the ideal website and solution, but until you actually give it back to your users, you'll learn a lot about what works and what doesn't work to refine your website. And then the final call, like I said, this past Saturday, the client hops on, and everyone presents the entire journey of the final product. What I want the students to realize is that it's not just about the end result; it's about the journey. I just interviewed someone at work yesterday, and you know, it's really important to understand what they learned from the journey of the project. It's, to be honest, it's less about the final result. It's more about, you know, what worked, what didn't work, what did you do, what problems did you come across? Because that's what, when you're getting hired, that's what it's all about, right? The company is hiring you to think, right? They're hiring you to understand your approach, and obviously the end result is important, but it's more about figuring out your process, your methodology, and how you are as a designer, if that makes sense. Next slide, please. And if you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat. So yeah, like I said, this was the Kebab Guys website. And as I mentioned, you know, we built this on Shopify. So it was kind of innovative in terms of, rather than just having your typical food website, the customers are able to order their sauce and are able to order on the website in addition to Uber Eats and Skip My Dishes and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So this was a really interesting client. So this was actually a good friend of mine. He's pretty viral. If you look him up on Instagram, he's a really world-renowned Islamic geometry artist. And what's really unique about him is that before COVID, his job was actually to travel around the world to various Islamic-inspired cities like Spain, Morocco, Dubai, Iran, various different places around the world. And because of the fact that he was very viral, people would actually go to him. And like, for example, if one of his workshops was in Spain, in the Alhambra, people would go to the Alhambra, spend a week with him, and he would basically draw and carve and do various interpretations of the architecture and the patterns within these places. I actually was fortunate enough to take a workshop with him in New York back in 2019. And anyway, so I got chatting with him. He was actually supposed to come to Toronto during COVID in 2020 to teach a course, but that didn't end up happening. And I've also been fortunate enough to design a mosque in Oakville, Ontario. So he was really helping me, he was mentoring me. Anyways, long story short, the students ended up designing his website. And during COVID, he was actually teaching his classes via Zoom, and let's just say he made a lot of money. Um, and his website was just not there. So the students ended up making his website on the platform Shopify, and they just did a tremendous job in terms of really understanding what are the things that like why are people actually spending money to learn from him, and really understand the context behind what his art and craft is all about. So they did a tremendous job by designing his website from scratch. Next slide, please. Here's another amazing client. So this guy actually built, if you actually look at this piece of brilliant architecture, this was a mosque that was designed in Central Asia, in Korog, and he was actually a good friend of mine, and he's been an architect. He's about 73 years old. He still practices to this day. It's a family business. His wife is an interior designer. His daughter, a good friend of mine, is an architect as well, and they've done tremendous work. But the problem was that all of his clients were word of mouth, right? His website was not there. So the students took a stab at it and built this beautiful, beautiful website. And the other thing is going back to the business model stuff. If you're familiar with the world of architecture, the challenge is getting paid, right? So you do these projects that last years, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And the challenge is like you get paid sometimes at the end, but there isn't really a recurring revenue. So one of the innovative ideas that the students and I and the client came up with was, why not do something as in consulting hours, right? So for example, during COVID, if you're renovating your kitchen and you just want to get his advice, because obviously he knows what he's doing, why not spend like, I don't know, $100, $150 and have a quick call with them where he can kind of give you advice right on the spot, regardless of where you are in the world. And then we added that to the website, and that's just a great way to add additional revenue stream to their business, in addition to the typical architecture work that they do. So this is where I get really passionate about in terms of mirroring business and design, and think about and get the students thinking about, not just the creative part, but also leveraging their business acumen in terms of understanding the business model and the value proposition of the client. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is pretty much the makeup of the team. Septa was the recent addition to the team. Melanie, Carmen, Philippe, and myself were kind of the pioneers, if I want to say. And we all, for the most part, created the course curriculum from day one. So it's evolved obviously through the years. This is we're about to go into our third year, if I'm not mistaken, of the program. So yeah, I mean, we all keep in touch. We're all really passionate about what we do. We're all working together to figure out how to create the best experience for all the students. Next slide, please. Who should take this program? So like I said, whether it seems like we have a lot of graphic designers in this group, but I think UX is something that's really important, whether you're a product manager, strategist, consulting, web development. UX is something that everyone needs to understand and practice for the most part. I mean, obviously, if you're a product manager, you don't really need to practice it, but you do need to understand it. You need to understand the development work. You need to understand the nuances that goes into it, understanding the research, and just add value. If you're a product manager and you're working with a UX designer, it pays dividends if you actually understand their process and understand how they think, because you'll just become more efficient. And if there's any other career paths that you're in, I know we had a lot of others in the survey at the beginning of the seminar or the webinar. But if you do have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat. Next slide, please.
Okay, I think I can take this one, Rahim.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, I'm good with the rest of the presentation. So thank you very much, Rahim. That was great. Really appreciate it. In terms of the program structure, I think I mentioned that the program is 8 months long. So it's a blend, right, of asynchronous and live online learning. It'll take you 8 months from start to finish. You can log in, you can participate in discussions in your online course forum, you can submit your work, you can talk to your instructor, you can talk to your peers, and then you log off when you need to. There are, though, 8 required live online sessions that are held on Zoom on a Saturday or a Sunday. It really depends on the semester that you enroll in. There may be other live touch points as well throughout the program, like we may have like guest webinars, like where we have a guest speaker come in, but those are not mandatory. We record everything, so if you happen to miss something, which we don't recommend, of course, because you know, some of the assessments are actually attached to these live sessions, so we don't recommend anyone miss any of the live sessions. But we do record everything so that you can go back and you can you know, review the content on your own time. We have, for our students, we also have additional opportunities. We have panel discussions, we've got guest speakers that come in, lots of opportunities to network and mentor. We have an entrepreneurship opportunity. We have Excel training, and we also have free access to LinkedIn Learning. The program in the winter begins in January of 2022. The full schedule is available on our website. The website is continue.yorku.ca, and the full program fee is $4,396. This includes all 4 courses. There are no required textbooks to purchase, so that is the fee. If you are a York University alumni, you do receive 10% off the tuition, so just call the registration department for the discount code. And this is our contact information. We're open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. We have online and telephone advising. If you think about a question after this webinar, please contact Mike. He is our continuing studies advisor that has been allocated for this program. He can be reached at continue@yorku.ca, and then we have our registration information and our Twitter handle. So having said that, I think we can probably turn it over to questions. And does anybody have any questions for either me or for Rahim? There is one question that came through. Is there a full-time program as well? No, there is not. The program is part-time. It was mentioned that there are only 8 required live online sessions throughout the program. In that case, what will the students do the rest of the week? So the program, as I mentioned, the structure of the program is a blend of asynchronous. I'm going to put the slide back up here. A blend of asynchronous and live online, right? So what you're doing the other part of the time is that you are participating in online discussions, you're doing your assignments, you're working on group projects, you're doing a lot of the work in an asynchronous modality rather than a live online. So you're only meeting with your class twice per course for a total of 8 because there's 4 courses. So I hope that clarified things. About the live online sessions on Zoom, will our webcams be on to participate live in class? Yes, you can opt not to have your webcam on, but Rahim, maybe you could speak to that. Like what normally happens in your class when you have your live sessions?
Yeah, I mean it's nice to see people's faces, of course, because you're not in the same room as them. So sometimes, I mean, I ask them to turn on their cameras, definitely when they're presenting. But I mean, if you want to keep it off during the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. session, that's totally optional. But I mean, during the presentations, it's mandatory to turn on your camera because obviously you should be presenting to your client as well. But for the most part, I mean, I'm just gonna say it's nice to be looking at human beings as opposed to an avatar or a black screen. Yeah.
Okay, great. Do we teach programs like Sketch, etc.? Yes. So Philippe in the 3rd course, he is I believe he covers Sketch and Figma, both of those programs in course number 3. I have a question for you, Rahim, for the student client project.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that. I mean, we pretty much have eliminated Sketch from the start of the program to now. I mean, pretty much industry standard is Figma. So we focus primarily on Figma now, and Philippe walks you through Figma in his course.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much. Rahim, this is for you. It's about the client project. For the student
Yep.
client project, will we be using templates on Shopify or another CMS? How will it be built if we are not coding?
Yeah, so all of the requirements for the websites that you're building for your client does not require you to code. I personally can't code and I don't want to learn how to code because that's not my superpower, my strength. And I want to make sure that no one is wasting time coding. So yes, we do use templates. The options are typically, whether it's a commerce client, then we stick to Shopify. If it's a website, like for example, for the architecture firm, that was done on Squarespace or Wix. And then in the occasion of when you're building a application for a client, the entire prototype and screens are built on Figma, and then they're just handed off to the clients and their developer. So yeah, no coding is required or needed in this program.
Here it asks, are instructors available on a weekly basis for consultation and work discussion? Absolutely. The instructor, this is not a self-directed course. It's an instructor-led course. So yes, absolutely. The instructors are always available to answer your questions, to consult, etc. Let's see. For the design project, are they focused on websites, Rahim, or are there opportunities for projects on mobile web app platforms as well?
Yeah, all of the above. I try to make sure the clients are very diverse. So this time around, the course that I just wrapped up on Saturday, we had two platforms. We had an application. We had one commerce or one commerce this time around, and the rest were just websites. So when you're picking your clients, it all depends on what you want to do, where your goals are. But for the most part, all the clients, I try my best to be as diverse as possible.
And Rahim, if someone has no design background, right, they're starting UX from scratch, can this program help them? Can the program support someone like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great segue to the story that I promised you I'll tell. So there's a student that unfortunately lost her job to COVID and she was an Air Canada flight attendant. She took the program. She graduated in, if I remember correctly, May of 2021, just this past year. Um, and she was hardworking. She had zero design background prior to the program, but she was super hardworking. And then during my office hours, she talked to me and she was like, a little bit anxious. She was like, okay, I don't really have enough in my portfolio and I really need to get a job. So I coached her through it and I basically told her, I'm like, why don't you just do a case study based on your experience at Air Canada? So whether that's, making the infotainment system better, but obviously she didn't have access to the infotainment system. So she ended up creating an application for lost baggage because that was a huge pain point while she was working at Air Canada. So she spent a month doing her due diligence, basically created this beautiful case study. And long story short, she started a job as a junior designer, not even an intern, a junior designer at TELUS, about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months now. So that's probably my favorite story of teaching so far because it goes to show that if you're really focused and determined, you can basically pull it off and get what you're and achieve your goals.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. That is an awesome story, and it really tells you, like again, like it really depends on how motivated you are to achieve your goals, like you said, right? And how much you love the discipline. So we've noticed this in some of our other programs. Like in my portfolio, I have a cybersecurity program, and even in that program, there's people who have now like graduated from the program and are highly successful in the field, and they had absolutely no background in cybersecurity whatsoever. They just had passion for the subject matter, and it worked out for them.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for me or Rahim? I think we've answered most of the questions. And of course, you can always reach out to Mike if you have any other questions. And for anyone who joined late, this was recorded and you're going to get a copy of the recording. Okay, thanks, Rahim. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I really, really appreciate it.
No worries. And yeah, if you have
Yeah,
any other
and
questions, hit me up on LinkedIn or
okay,
this is
thank you.
Rahim Bhimani, and let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I hope everyone has happy holidays. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.